Okay, thank you. My name is Munyayi, and I'm currently a PhD student in biochemistry, and I'm dealing with the etching or growth of gold nanoparticles for the universal colorimetric detection of NAD or NADPH. So I'm going to forge ahead and talk about the gold or gold per se. Gold is basically a D block element with two major oxidation states, that's +1 and +3. And basically it is used in the nanomedicine, nanodiagnostics, and therapeutics. And
Lauren, it's showing your video view at the moment. If you could just change it back to your presentation view.
How do I do it? Yeah.
Right at the top where it says that there's a green and a little black one that says view options. Next to the view options.
Should I say stop video?
Duncan, I actually see the presentation.
Okay, I see him. And the presentation is a tiny little icon at the top.
Is it not perhaps your view on your
view?
Screen? Mm-hmm.
My view. Okay, well, you can continue, Oren.
Okay. Is there anyone who's actually seeing the PowerPoint?
Right,
yes,
I've got it.
Now, okay, so I'm going to just reiterate what I just said, maybe for the sake of progress. But basically, I'm dealing with gold nanoparticles. And specifically, gold nanoparticles are used in nanomedicine, nanodiagnostics, and nanotherapeutics. And per se, I'll be dealing with gold nanostars. And that being said, I don't know, where's this thing moving? Okay. So I'm going to be using colorimetric assays. So basically, I selected, there are 4 major colorimetric assays that are used under normal circumstances. That's the aggregation one, the one that is based on aggregation, another one that is based on etching, the other one that is based on growth, and the other one that is based on nanoenzyme. But that being said, I'm going to be using the etching one, which is based on hydrogen peroxide production, which is being evolved from the metabolic reaction that will be occurring. So basically, I'm dealing with NADPH and NADH. And there are differences that NADPH will be having an extra phosphate group attached to it. And if you can see from the half equations that are to my right on this presentation, you can see that NADH, for its oxidation to NAD plus, you actually need approximately 0.32 volts. And for NADPH, you need 0.324 volts, which is just a slight difference. And these are the critical roles in which NAD plus or NADPH plus work. And the NADH, they work in regulating cellular redox states, and also in metabolic homeostasis, leading to redox stress and NH stress. So basically, these are the articles that I used, or that I'm using currently in this work. And I'm going to be dwelling much on the nanoparticle shape and capping agent and the observation time, and maybe also the color change, since I'll be dealing with the colorimetric work. If you had to notice on this published article, they used nanorods, gold nanorods, and they changed from being rods to spheres. And that occurred in the presence of CTEP, which is a capping agent, and the color was from green to red, and it occurred at room temperature. And if I'm to come back to this one, they also used NADH as a biomarker, and they used gold nanospheres and a capping agent CTEP, and the observation time was 4 minutes, and the color changed from white to red, and also at room temperature. And on this article, they used nanospheres, and they used the citrate capping agent, and the color changes from blue to pink. But if you had to check on this one, they were spheres, right? So on this one, they used tripoids, tetrapods, and the capping agent of C-tape, and the color was from red to blue. So automatically, this drove me to one end, that there is something that is happening with the capping agents. Once you change a capping agent, there is also a colorimetric reaction that occurs, which produces a different color. So that was the first stop that I did, and I'm actually ready to publish that article anytime soon. So moving forward, I looked into galactosemia, so which is a rare genetic metabolic disorder that occurs when individuals are not able to fully metabolize glucose or galactose properly, actually. So there are basically three types of galactosemia, which is classic galactosemia, and galactokinase, and galactosemia type 2, and galactose type 3. So these ones, they are actually caused by fluctuations in hormones from the Lelo pathway, which is the general galactose metabolic route. So if you can see from here, you're actually having, if you are having a shortage of galactokinase, you experience galactosemia type 2. And if you are having a shortage of galactose 1 phosphate uridyl transferase, you actually have classic galactosemia. And if you are experiencing a shortage or a malfunction in UDP galactose 4 epimerase, you actually experience galactose type 3. So this is the general layout, but there are other auxiliary pathways that are present, which are the ones that I'm going to be dealing more with, which are these follows, which are on my background here. So basically, galactose can be reduced, or can be oxidized rather. Galactose can be oxidized in the oxidative pathway to galactitol in the presence of NADPH and aldose reductase as the enzyme. Or it can be reduced by the reductive pathway in the presence of galactose dehydrogenase and NADH in this place. So that being said, if you are to check here, on our objectives, I'm working to produce a simple, sensitive, and highly selective colorimetric NAD, NADPH biosensor for the investigations of the metabolism pathways. But on this one, I just zeroed in on galactosemia, whilst I'll be using gold nanostars. So that being said, I'll be actually making sure that I understand how the redox reactions are influencing the colorimetric reactions in the presence of an enzyme, the capping agent, hydrogen peroxide, and silver nitrate. And these are my general, or the broad basket of my objectives. So basically, the aldose reductase or the oxidative pathway, it is the one that I'll be using mainly because it seemed to be the one that is more feasible, considering the electrochemistry involved in the stoichiometry that is involved. So my functionalized gold nanostar will now act in the presence of aldose reductase to determine how much of NADPH, because if you can check, they get in the ratio of 1:1, stoichiometrically speaking, and to produce galactitol. So if I can actually find the amount of a visible, a naked eye visible colorimetric change, then I can actually now use that as a reverse mechanism or as an indirect way of finding how much of the galactose is present in a certain sample of blood that I'll be having, so to speak. So these are the governing half equations as they are. So if you can see, the silver ions will be actually coming from the silver nitrate, and they'll be reduced to form that, and they will act as a coating layer. And the overall oxidation equation or the overall redox equation will be as follows, with a plus 2.46 volts So from this data that I'm presenting here, I could actually see that it is actually much more feasible to do or to work with the oxidative pathway than the reductive pathway. And this is the colorimetric assay halfway equation, is it to be. So the peroxide will act as a competitor solution into my in the reaction mixture, and this will be the E theta value of the overall thing. And these are the expected results. So I'll be using much mainly of my aldose reductase. So currently, I've actually managed to deal with objective 1. And I think in the near future, I think maybe next week or next week, part 1, I'll be publishing this article, or I'll be sending it to the publishers so that they can verify it and maybe publish it. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you very much for that. I must say, developing biosensors is not a trivial project, and I wish you luck on this one. I think from the formulas you've given, it appears that the chemistry should work. So I sincerely hope that you can achieve this. Are there any questions from the floor? And I'd like to just remind the evaluators to please keep the evaluations for all the students going. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up, and I'm not seeing any. Are there any questions from? There's none on the blog, and I'm not seeing anybody asking. Is there anybody? Perhaps then if I could ask you one question. The color change that you get during your assay, it's usually related to a change in the size of your nanoparticles. And have you got any idea of what that color change intensity could be during this reaction?
Yeah, currently I've actually worked with 4 capping agents, and I've noticed that if I'm having an LSPR, like what you're saying, the change in the size of the nanoparticles, it actually produces a different color. But for when I'm using NADPH, it will actually go from blue, which is the normal or the optimal color of nanostars, and it will go to something in between wine red to purple, which shows that if the metabolic reaction has occurred and hydrogen peroxide has been produced, they will be chopping off of the protrusions, so to speak, that the one that will make us say these are nanostars, they will be chopped off and will producing something more of a spherical something, a spherical particle. So that's what I have so far.
Okay, as I say, it's an important aspect, and it's definitely not trivial. And there'll be a lot of validation required afterwards. So I wish you good luck with your project.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay, there's still no other people